Well, we are a big family tonight, aren't we? It has grown. Seeing your faces reminds me of something. Some years ago, Brother Nikhil Ananda and I were in Seattle conducting a retreat. And during our stay, an Indian couple looked after us very nicely. And so at the end, we went out and purchased a small bag of chocolates to express our appreciation to them. And as we were leaving, the man selling the chocolates looked at us and he asked, "Are you brothers?" Now, Brother Nikhil Ananda, you have to understand, he's from Austria. He has an Austrian accent. I'm from California. I don't know what kind of accent I have. And we don't look alike. But when he asked, "Are you brothers?" I instinctively replied, "Yes, we are." And he said, "I knew it." I could tell by your eyes. And if he was standing here tonight where I am and seeing all of you, I don't think he'd have to ask. He'd be thinking, "I've never seen such a beautiful, shining family," and there's thousands of them. Because there is that divine link between all of us, isn't it? Master said, "Once we were strangers, but when we love God, we become brothers and sisters." That divine relationship is the strongest of bonds. Here it was only 150 years ago when it all started, when Babaji gave the sacred Kriya Yoga to Lahiri Mahasaya, who initiated 1 or 2 disciples at a time in his little home in Benares. And look at us now, how we have grown. A growing family united in God. When we sign up for the Self-Realization Fellowship lessons, we receive so much more than just the printed material. Through our practice of Kriya Yoga, through our love for God, we are eternally linked to the ever-living gurus and to the Guru's spiritual family. And so here we are tonight at this wonderful gathering of the family. Convocation was started by our Guru himself, and as we open our hearts and minds, we will feel his living presence. And as we go forward into the convocation week, coming to the group meditations, the kirtans, the classes, the pilgrimage tours, the satsangs, let us do so with that faith that through the power of our gurus and through our own sincerity and love for God and through that powerful magnet of group effort, we will receive divine blessings that can completely, utterly transform our lives. So, our subject tonight, forging divine consciousness in the fires of daily existence. It was shortly after Sri Dayamata entered the ashram as a young 17-year-old girl, eager for God, that the saintly Gyanamata came, who Master upheld as an example of the ideal disciple. And from time to time, Gyanamata would leave notes for the younger ones, giving some wisdom, some encouragement for the spiritual life, for the search for God. And there was one note that Ma received from Gyanamata that she shared with us, and I have always remembered it. It has 4 simple but very powerful points. 1, see nothing, look at nothing but your goal, ever shining before you. 2, the things that happen to us do not matter. What we become through them does. 3, each day accept everything as coming to you from God. And 4, at night, give everything back into his hands. So that first point, keep the goal ever shining before you. There is this force of Maya, delusion, that is trying to perpetuate this creation of duality, trying to keep us enmeshed in this delusion, separated from God. How does Maya work on us? Through our bad habits, our restlessness, our indifference. And so we have to resist that Maya by reminding ourselves that the great purpose of our lives is to find God. One way we do this is by deeply studying and absorbing the Guru's teachings. Because you can pick up any of the Guru's books. You can listen to any of his recorded talks. You can pick up any of the Self-Realization Fellowship lessons. And everywhere you look will be a reminder. The essential purpose of life is to know God, as our Guru knew God. It was at the Last Supper that Jesus, knowing he only had hours left in this world, and trying to convey with a great sense of urgency to his close disciples the essence of his life and the essence of his teachings. And he said to them, "Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit of itself, except it abide in the vine, no more can ye, except ye abide in me. I am the vine, ye are the branches. He that abideth in me, and I in him, the same bringeth forth much fruit, for without me ye can do nothing." And our Guru explains it is from his oneness with the Christ consciousness that Jesus is speaking. Blissful, omnipresent consciousness of God in all creation. And it is to this Christ consciousness that God calls every one of us. And we will never be satisfied with anything less than that, because that perfect love, that ever new infinite joy, is our real nature. Right now, we're in delusion, and the delusion is strong. We think we're these bodies, these physical forms that have all the aches and pains and gradually deteriorate and someday will die. We think we're the limited minds with all the moods. But sooner or later, we have to get back to the real self, the soul. I am a child of God, made in his divine image. I am a child of God, made in his divine image. That's a wonderful affirmation to use. God is light, God is love, God is joy, God is wisdom, and we as his children are those perfect images of his light, his love, his joy. Why don't we feel that more? Because the channel through which God comes to us gets all clogged up, you see. If you've ever seen a dirty stove, if you look closely, the little tiny jets of flame on the burner are coming from that one central flame. But when the tiny jets get clogged up with the dirt or the grease, the flame is very uneven. Sometimes it won't even ignite. Our consciousness continually flows from that infinite, pure consciousness of God. But through the delusion, through the bad habits and wrong thinking and wrong living, the channel through which we receive God gets all clogged up. We can't feel his presence, and so we suffer. In our Guru's poem, Samadhi, he said to memorize that. And the poem opens as follows. Vanished the veils of light and shade, lifted every vapor of sorrow, sailed away all dawns of fleeting joy, gone the dim sensory mirage, love, hate, health, disease, life, death, perished these false shadows on the screen of duality. Here, our Guru is describing the cleansing, the unclogging of that channel. The delusions are dropping away from the devotee. And then later in that poem, our Guru writes, Samadhi but extends my conscious realm beyond limits of the mortal frame to farthest boundary of eternity, where I, the cosmic sea, watch the little ego floating in me. So Christ speaks of the branch abiding in the vine. Our Guru speaks of becoming the cosmic sea, watching the little ego floating in me. They are speaking of the very same experience. And the great purpose of life is to realize we're not just a little ego of human consciousness. We are the ocean of cosmic consciousness. We're not just an isolated branch. We are part of that infinite vine of Christ's consciousness. And the final lines of the poem Samadhi, a tiny bubble of laughter, I am become the sea of mirth itself. If you've ever been to the beach and watched the waves come crashing down, if you look closely afterwards, you'll see there's hundreds, thousands of tiny little bubbles on the surface of the water or on the wet sand. Well, think of an intensely successful moment in your life. Maybe it was when you graduated from the university, or you got married, or you received some big promotion in your career. Think of one of your happiest, most successful moments in your life. That is one of the tiny bubbles. Now, think of the ocean, the entire ocean, its vastness, its immensity. Ocean that covers 2/3 of this planet. That is the joy that waits for each one of us when we find God. Earlier this year, there was the beautiful issue of Self-Realization magazine devoted to our beloved Sri Dayamata. And in there, it had the recording of her talk, just a wonderful, inspiring talk on the CD. And in that talk, she quoted Paramahansa Yogananda saying this, "My body is nothing. Whether I am in the body or not, still those who will be in tune, I shall have a prayer for you. And that is, may God be born within you as he is born in me." And to me, this is so beautiful, the prayer of the Guru for each one of us. The reason the Guru came is that God may be born within us as God has been born in him. And during this blessed week of convocation, what we want for you, what we pray for you, is that you so feel God and you so commune with that great love of God that you begin to realize the possibility of having the Guru's prayer for you fulfilled. That God can truly be born within you as God has been born in him. Because once we realize this, not just as an idea, but as a definite, distinct possibility, then we will want to give the Guru all our faith and all our sincerity and devotion and enthusiastic obedience and cooperation until the divine goal is reached. And we must not be satisfied with anything less than that. Because Master came to give the experience of God to those who prepare themselves. Dayama once said, "What most interested Master was the spirit of the devotee, the loving desire and determination to experience God." Now, the next point Gyanamata gives. The things that happen to us do not matter. What we become through them does. In one of her letters, Gyanamata writes of this saint who had a rather different personality. Sometimes he would want to be alone, and so seemingly in anger, he would pick up rocks and throw them at the disciples to drive them away. And there were no doubt some that when he did that thought to themselves, well, look at him, some saint he is, he's angry, and maybe they left never to return. But there were others who had such respect for that guru-disciple relationship, they would pick up the stones with reverence, thinking anything that comes to me from my guru is sacred to me. And when they arrived home, they found the stones had transformed into golden nuggets. And this is a beautiful allegory for the spiritual path and for life itself. Because every devotee will go through the point where we feel overwhelmed, where the stress is beyond which we thought we could endure. Sometimes we may go through extraordinary pain. And if during those times we give in to anger, our fear, our bitterness, why are you doing this to me, Lord? Here I'm a devotee, I'm seeking you. Why did you let this happen? And if we let ourselves get angry and bitter inside, it's not much fun. Life can be a very dark burden that way. But if during those trials we strive for right attitude, now, Lord, this has happened and it's hard for me. How should I respond? How would you have me respond? If we do that, we begin to see the experience. It's not easy, but it becomes a golden nugget, meaning through it, we become spiritually stronger, and through it, we draw closer to God. I remember as a young monk, I would sometimes drive the ministers to the temples for the Sunday morning services. And at one of the temples, I saw this man there who was obviously new to self-realization fellowship. And we spoke a couple times, and I could see he was very intellectual. He tended to measure the teachings according to what he thought he already knew. And he thought he knew a lot. And so I had the thought, well, I wonder how long this one's going to last. Well, I hadn't seen him for a couple months. And one morning I was at the temple and the minister came to me and he said, come with me. I want to introduce you to someone. And so we stepped into a room and it was this man. And I was shocked because he looked terrible. He had lost a lot of weight, just skin and bones. His eyes were sunken and bloodshot, like he hadn't had much sleep. And he explained he had AIDS. And this was in the days when there was no medicine for it. And so the doctors had told him to maybe 3 months left for him. But as we spoke, it was just so inspiring because I could see he had changed so much. He told me how he used to drive with his friends in the mountains, and he was so critical, he would even criticize the trees in the forest. But now as we spoke, I could see his attitude was so different. He was so grateful to Master, grateful for the teachings, grateful for the many kindnesses that the devotees were showing him during his illness. And you could feel that spirit, that positive enthusiasm, that wonderful spirit of thankfulness. And I told him, I said, I know it's not easy for you, but I so admire your faith and courage. You keep on like this, I said. I think you'll be racing to God. And that's how he spent his final days, doing his very best to love God, to keep his mind on God. He wrote a beautiful final chapter in the book of his life. It was a transformation. Master said, many people are afraid of life's problems. I have never feared them. For I have always prayed, Lord, may thy power increase in me. Keep me in the positive consciousness that with thy help, I can always overcome my difficulties. Once I was going on an overnight camping trip with a small group of monks, and the night before we set out, there was a terrific storm in the mountains. And so we were on the trail the next morning, and we saw a group coming out, and so we asked them, well, how did it go? And they said, oh, it was just terrible. There was tremendous lightning and this ear-splitting thunder, and it was raining buckets. We got drenched, and it was just the most miserable, frightening night we've ever had. And so we were looking at each other thinking, wondering if maybe we needed to turn around. And then about half an hour later, we met another group coming out, and we asked the same question, how did it go? And they said, it was so great. There was lightning, and there was ear-splitting thunder, and it was raining buckets, and we got drenched. We never had such fun. And I thought to myself, there you have it. Two groups in the same environment. They even used some of the same words to describe it. But one group, misery. The other group, such fun. The difference was their attitude. Master said, change your thoughts if you wish to change your circumstances. Besides the Kriya Yoga, that's one of the greatest keys he's given for happiness to us. Change your thoughts. Years ago, we received a letter from a devotee, and I refer to it from time to time because it's always been an inspiration to me, and I'd like to read part of it to you tonight. Dear Mother Center, as you know, I was operated for cancer. Everything seemed perfect, but only 6 months later, it spread in the liver and the lungs. I realized it was impossible for me to live alone and take care of myself, so I decided to live with my sister, who wonderfully opened her house to me. The cancer has spread, and because of its specific type, no therapy can be used. Since I understood this, a great peace has never left me. I remember that about 10 years ago, I used to fear losing Master's presence, our consciousness at death, and that was unbearable. Now I know it can't be so, as my love for him will be the only passport I will use with a big stamp on it, my deep longing to know God. I know death doesn't exist because I don't identify myself with the physical body. So I don't feel that any forever separation will take place from my dear ones and friends. Lately, because of the medication and pain, it has been very hard for me to meditate. I try, but with very little success. This is something I fight against. But all during the day, I keep on putting my mind on the divine. Doing so, I receive the help to accept the pain test with the right attitude, offering everything to God. Master has given me another great blessing in this last period. Any of his words, of his affirmations that I remember or I read, stand out in my mind as truth. No doubt can touch them. Yes, I am happy. Happy to have found my guru in this life. Still, I am fully aware that the battle is here and ahead of me, so I ask all your prayers. You see, even if we're in a great test, in the darkness, if we have faith, if we keep doing our best to make the spiritual effort as best we can, if we keep loving God, there's a real beauty there, a real spiritual power, and God responds to that. And we feel his blessings. But what we want is a continuity of spiritual effort every day. We don't want to wait for the big crisis. Every day can be a spiritual victory if we try to learn and grow through the little struggles, the little trials, the little tests. You think about it, every day we're presented with choices to make, isn't it? Something happens and we're upset, and sure, we can give in to the lower emotions. We can become frustrated and angry and those sort of things. Or we can strive to consciously choose the higher path. Those thoughts, those desires, those actions that uplift our consciousness, that lead us towards God. Right attitude means choosing the higher path again and again and again and again until it becomes a way of life. And then the final two thoughts Gyanamata expressed. Each day, accept everything as coming to you from God. At night, give everything back into his hands. As we continue to practice our Kriya Yoga, as we work on cultivating a personal relationship with God, you begin to see that in the ultimate sense, it is God alone with whom you are dealing. It's like that beautiful song we sing at the Christmas meditation. He walks with me, he talks with me, he tells me I am his own. And the closer we feel to God, the more we're able to see our struggles with detachment. Now, Lord, this person was mean to me, and I lost it. I snapped back. But now I want to fix this. How can I mend this whole thing, Lord? What would you have me do? More and more that personal relationship with God, it becomes so sweet and so precious, it becomes your guiding light. And you don't want to do anything that's going to diminish it. And if that means seeking out 12 people and apologizing to them, you're willing to do that. Because all you know is that you want to more and more dive into that relationship with God and drink of that love, that comfort, that contentment. What happens, the tests, they lose their power over you. Now, they're always there, and we feel it, at least part of us feels it. The nature of this world is test, full of test, always tests. But you reach the point where you know God is in charge, and in all situations, all conditions, all you're trying to do is love God and feel his presence. That's your comfort. That's your solace. That's where the yearning of your heart is going to. And in that yearning to be with God, you think more and more, not of material things, but you're thinking, how can I get closer to you, Lord? And you're looking throughout the day for ways to feel his presence. To me, one of the greatest things that Master said, every minute is a link between you and God. Every minute. That's the potential for every one of us. When I was invited to take my final vows as a monk of Self-Realization Fellowship, and I had an appointment to meet with Sri Dayamata. She wanted to discuss the vows of sannyas with me. And I was about to leave my desk for the meeting when the phone rang, and it was an emergency, so I had to handle it. And so I did it as quickly as I could, but as a result, I was running about 5-10 minutes late. And I arrived at the third floor middle room where Ma was supposed to meet with me about 10 minutes late. And as I crossed the threshold into the room, I could see Ma had arrived before me. She was sitting there, and I'll never forget. She was absolutely still. Her eyes were closed. Her gaze was uplifted to the Christ Center. And as I stepped into that room, there was such a profound feeling of holiness, of stillness, of quietude. There was no doubt in my mind she was with God. And then she sensed I was there, and she opened her eyes, and we had a very wonderful meeting. But it was a lesson I never forgot. Because I was late, she had a few extra minutes in her very busy day. She didn't waste a moment. She went inside to be with her divine beloved. And we all have those opportunities. We just have to start working at taking advantage of them. You're saying we won't be perfect. I'm still not perfect, far from it, but you try. You try. And it doesn't have to be complicated. Like Dayama used to always tell us, just close your eyes and say, I love you, God. I don't know anything else. I love you. Of course, I know sometimes it's hard to think of God because we get all wound up. Something happens and we're upset and we're feeling a little frustrated. And when you're in that state, it's hard to be thinking loving thoughts to God or to be asking, Lord, what's right attitude? So what do? Well, first, we have to meditate every day. The more we commune with God, the less vulnerable we will be to the negative emotions, you see. But also, the thing is, as we study and practice the Guru's teachings, the Guru's thoughts become a permanent part of our consciousness. And what will happen, some of his thoughts will especially appeal to us. And as we work them, as we affirm them again and again and again, they become like shining guideposts for us. And then what will happen, you'll be in a state where you're troubled or you're worried or a little anxious, frightened, and all of a sudden, it's the most beautiful thing. One of the Guru's thoughts will rise to the fore like this great spiritual light, giving you calmness and inner peace and strength, just like the light of the lighthouse, guiding the ship when it's in the darkness of the storm. One thing about Dayama that so appealed to my heart, the simplicity of her approach to God. She took just a few thoughts from the scriptures from our Guru, and she made them her shining guidepost, the standards by which she lived her life. And a couple of her thoughts that have been so helpful to me through the years, I was using them today. Lord, not my will, but thine be done. And Lord, thou art the doer, not I. When I have too much to do, when I feel overwhelmed, when I don't know what direction to go in, the moment I can remember to think these thoughts, in that moment, in that instant, I am comforted. I have inner peace, a sense of attunement with Master, with God. It seems almost too simple, but when you practice these affirmations, then you realize how very powerful they can be. But the key, you have to practice. Another thought Ma often used, especially when guiding the work, she would ask, what does Master want? If you need to determine a direction to go in some aspect of your life, at the end of meditation, keep your attention at the Christ Center and ask that deeply, what would you have me do here, my Guru? And then try to feel in your heart his response and keep doing it, and you'll see, you do that, it's like having a divine compass. You find your way, led by the Guru. As we meditate and as we follow the Guru, that relationship with God becomes very deep and very real. Sometimes devotees come and they want the big miracles. You know, the visions of the saints or visions of the Guru are the big dramatic healings. And certainly these things can come. All things are possible to God. But it seems that with the devotee, often God likes to come in the little ways, the little more subtle ways. But the thing is this, you add up all the little divine responses, it's not little. It's not little at all. The total impact, it's a transformation. The peace of meditation, the bubbles of joy that surface in the midst of daily activity. And for me, what I feel is the greatest experience, the feeling of being loved by God. I think of it sometimes, it's like the child being held in the mother's arms. When the child's on the mother's lap, there's no doubt. The child knows. The child knows it's loved by the mother. And that's exactly how it is for the devotee. You are held on the lap of Divine Mother, and you feel her love because you are experiencing it. And we all can have that. If we refuse to be discouraged, if we keep on trying to conquer the lower nature, if we keep practicing the teachings, we all can have that experience of feeling loved by God. And sometimes God responds in the sweetest ways, sometimes when we least expect it. Some years ago, we were having a meditation for the monks, a long meditation at our Mount Washington Chapel. And the monk who was leading the meditation, he was chanting Guruji's song, "Listen, listen, listen to my heart's song. I will never forget thee. I will never forsake thee." And I was very much into it. And so we were all chanting. And then he abruptly switched to another chant, which was Swami Ram Tirtha's song, which is a song not of devotion, but of willpower, of divine invincibility. None can tone me, say who would injure me. And so normally I like that song. But the transition this particular time from devotion to willpower, it was too much for me. And so I started saying to myself, now, why did he do that? Doesn't this fellow know how to lead a meditation? And so the other monks, they were chanting, and while they were chanting, I wasn't chanting, I was mentally criticizing. And I knew it was wrong, but it was really hard for me, so I started praying about it. And I prayed, Divine Mother, this is really hard for me. Can you please help? Can you please shut him up? Now, to be honest, I don't think I expected a response. I was just letting off steam. And you know, you have to have a relationship with God. When you're a little frustrated, you can let him know about it. You can share these things. Never have to hide with God. He knows before we think it, before we feel it. But anyways, that was my prayer. And I think Divine Mother heard me because abruptly this monk stopped chanting. And I was very happy. Well, wait till you hear. Because the next morning, I ran into this fellow in the monk's office, and he said, you know, there was something really strange about last night's meditation. And I said, oh, really? And he said, yes. He said, when it came to Swami Ram Tirtha's song, I was really into it, and I wanted to chant that for a long, long time, but one of the main keys stuck. And then he said, but the funny thing is, later when I switched to another chant, the key was fine. There was nothing wrong with it. I never said a word. But that night I prayed, thank you, Divine Mother. Thank you. So even sometimes when we're unreasonable, God even then understands us. To seek God, you see, to love God is to develop that relationship where he becomes your closest, your dearest, your most beloved friend, the one in this whole creation who understands you always, even at times when you don't understand yourself, even at times when you make mistakes, even at times when we don't follow the spiritual path so well. This is what it means to be unconditionally loved. But to realize that, we have to meditate every day. Be faithful in our sadhana. Be faithful to our guru. This is how that relationship with God is forged. This is how it becomes strong. This is how it becomes real. Master said, putting off meditation until tomorrow is a great delusion. Now, sure, meditation, it involves discipline. And every devotee who has ever sought God has had times when it's been harder to meditate, when the mind's more restless, but you just keep on and you know that state will never be permanent. Master said perseverance is the whole magic of spiritual success. We have to go on, you see. If you're running a marathon, it's a long course. And for part of the course, you're running downhill, and that's easy. And part of it, you're going on level ground, and that's not too bad. And part of it, you're going up the steep hill. And with the best of the marathon runners, there's going to be times on that course when you feel like you're dying. When the energy is low, it's hard to breathe, every muscle in that body is aching. But what you do, you keep putting one foot in front of the other, because you know with each step forward, you're going that much closer to the finish line. Very same thing for the devotee seeking God. Yes, sometimes it's hard to meditate. Sometimes it's hard to find time to meditate. Sometimes those bad habits surprise us with their ferocity and strength. But it's all part of the course of finding God. You see, you have to keep trying. God asks that much of every one of us. Seeking God. It's not a few months, and it's not a few years. We have to give our lives to seeking God each day, doing our sincere best to meditate, each day doing our sincere best to walk the spiritual path. And you see, eventually, those scales of restless karma begin to shift, and then you begin to enjoy the fruits of your spiritual labors. The blessings, they start to flow. You know, there's a passage in the Bhagavad Gita, and for the longest time it used to bother me, and I'll read it. Son of Kunti, Arjuna, that thought with which a dying man leaves the body determines, through his long persistence in it, his next state of being. So the last thought with which we leave the body is very, very important. I never liked that Gita passage. Because you think about it, someone really works hard, you know, at living a good life, and then at the end they just happen to hit that last thought wrong, and they're sunk. Well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So somebody meditates and prays all their life, and they're good to others, very compassionate and loving, and then the poor fellow's on his deathbed, and he just happens to remember some crazy, violent movie he saw 20 years ago, and he comes back as a gangster. There's no justice there. Or the other side of the coin, someone's mean and nasty and vicious all his life, and he's crossing the street to rob a bank, and then a truck hits him, and he thinks, Lord, I'm dying. And that's the first time he's thought of God in 20 years, but he hit the last thought right. So I never liked that Gita passage. But when we published God Talks with Arjuna, our Guru's Gita commentary, in it, he gives a wonderful, wonderful discourse on this very passage. And then I was entirely satisfied. I'll read from it. Our Guru says, the entirety of a human life is a preparation for the final examination at death. A man suddenly finding himself at death's door reviews in a flash the thoughts and desires and habits of his entire life. Now, I think most of you know it was in 1948 that Sri Dayamad had a near-death experience, which she also described as a life review at that time. And one time the way she described this life review that comes at the end, it's not a sequential experience like seeing a film. But what she said was it's like being in the room of a house where you're limited to what you can see in that one room. And suddenly somebody lifts the roof up of the top of the house and lifts you up above so you can look down and see all the rooms simultaneously. And so at this life review at the end, at the same time, the person leaving the body sees their entire life and everything that happened. So continuing with Master's commentary, a man suddenly finding himself at death's door reviews in a flash the thoughts and desires and habits of his entire life. He is quickly invaded by one overwhelming feeling or desire whose nature will be in accordance with the character of his life. He may feel predominantly guilty for his evil actions, or predominantly happy because of his good deeds, or predominantly worldly because of his material activities. Whatever his feeling, it is the determining cause that will lead him to a particular part of the astral worlds and then to another suitable incarnation on earth. The paramount habit of thought and feeling during a man's years on earth is thus the most important factor on the day of judgment. The final thought, inexorably produced by the tenor of a lifetime, is indeed the karmic judge that at the sound of Gabriel's trumpet announces a man's next destination. So that final thought at the end is the culmination of the entire trend of your life. And that's why you should never be discouraged. You always go forward with that eternal hope of the soul. Because if you never give up, what's your last thought going to be? It's going to be, Divine Mother, I never gave up. I never gave up trying to serve you and others. I never gave up trying to help you and others. I never gave up trying to commune with you in deep meditation. I never gave up loving you. And Divine Mother, I will never give up until you come to me. And with a powerful final thought like that, we will be lifted to a very blissful realm in the astral worlds. Now, of course, you shouldn't feel you have to wait for the end for God to come. Master unequivocally says each one of us, if we're determined, can know God in this lifetime through Kriya Yoga. It's that powerful. And when we meditate, we should feel that God can come to us at any moment. But if need be, we'll seek him with infinite patience. It's like that beautiful chant Master used to sing. In the valley of sorrow, 1,000 years are till tomorrow, but I'll wait to see you, just you. God can come tomorrow. God can come today. But if need be, we'll seek him 1,000 years. No time limit. No time limit. When we meditate, it's having a great sense of anticipation that God is right around the corner, and just a little more effort on our part will bring the divine response, but coupled with that undying patience, if we have to. We will seek you forever, Lord. What I find the way to keep renewing the inspiration, the best way for me is working on devotion, that loving relationship with God. Master said love is one of the greatest stimulants to the will. And he also said there is a personal element in the search for God that is more important than mastery over the whole science of yoga. That personal element is love. Now, this doesn't mean we can forget the science of yoga. Then Master will say, as did Christ, why call me Lord, Lord, and do not what I say? Kriya Yoga plus devotion plus right activity. This is the golden middle path, the balanced path to God that Babaji, Lahiri Mahashai, and our Guru have given us. And during this week of convocation, you will see we have wonderful workshops to review the meditation techniques. And whether you're a new student here for the first time or you're a 30-year disciple, I would urge you come to the technique reviews. They will help you to improve and deepen your practice. Whenever I've gone, and I'm always eager to go to those, I always feel benefited from them. We'll also be having throughout the convocation week the How to Live classes. Classes showing how to use the Blessed Master's teachings to spiritualize our lives, covering such key core subjects like Yama Niyama, the moral foundation of the spiritual life, spiritualizing relationships, living fearlessly, overcoming bad habits through that power of Kriya Yoga. We also will have the group meditations the kirtans, where united with thousands, you can go dive deep, deep, deep in that communion with God. And underlying all these different events, all these activities, there's one basic law, one fundamental magnetism, and that is the yearning of your soul to unite with God. And this is love. This is love. Developing love for God, it's not easy. It takes some work. But it is very, very simple. First, we have to set priorities. Whether you're living in the ashram or whether you're living in the world, it doesn't matter. Your relationship with God has to be number one, period. No ifs, ands, or buts. And then we work at it. Gyanamata once wrote to a student, "How shall devotion be stimulated? What fuel shall we use to replenish the fire upon our altar? The Gita says that the Lord will not reject the smallest offering. A flower, a fruit will do. Ask your heart, it will guide you. Perform regularly whatever act makes devotion burn to heaven in a clear, bright flame." And that's it. Whatever act makes devotion burn to heaven in a clear, bright flame. And it can be the smallest thing. Like Dayama often told us, just close your eyes and say, "I love you, God. I don't know anything else. I love you." And if you don't feel that, just be honest. "Lord, right now, I don't feel love for you. I feel all dry inside, but I will never accept this. Unite me with thy consciousness. Respond to me." Sometimes I think of my early years in the path when there were times when I felt so dry and so restless. Sometimes it felt like God had closed the door on me, but I never accepted. I never accepted that. And in prayer and meditation, I would fling myself against that door. "I will never accept this, Master. I know through your power someday I will get through." And gradually, as I continued, things got better. I think of that in my later years, and I'm just so very grateful I didn't give up. Because sure, I have a long ways to go, and I certainly have plenty of work to do on myself still. But as you continue through the years, that relationship with God, it becomes so sweet and so deep, it becomes your only reality, the absolute upon which the rest of your life rests. Why is the personal relationship with God so important? Why can't we just kind of coldly, mathematically follow the science, the laws of yoga? Well, sometimes I like to explain it this way. Have you ever had a friend who did everything a friend was supposed to do, and yet you had a funny feeling inside? There was a line there, and you knew if you ever crossed that line, that would be the end of the friendship. Has that ever happened to some of you? And maybe you had another friend, a bit of a nuisance, bit of character flaws, and yet you also knew that night or day you could call that friend anytime, and if it was important, they would be there for you instantly. No questions asked. Always there for you. Well, it's pretty obvious which one of those friends our heart responds to. You see, God is the very same way. It's so beautiful because on one hand, yes, God is cosmic and infinite, this infinite intelligence that is created and is sustaining billions of universes whirling through space. And if he withdrew himself, everything would instantly cease to be, including all of us. So he is cosmic and infinite, but at the same time, there is that other aspect. He is so incredibly personal. As Master once said, he is a God of human love, and he responds to human affection. And the whole structure of this creation is such that we will never be fully satisfied or happy until we learn to give ourselves to God completely, without holding back. Master said, "The searcher of hearts wants only your sincere love. He is like a little child. Someone may offer him his whole wealth, and he doesn't want it. And another cries to him, 'Oh Lord, I love you.' And into that devotee's heart, he comes running." If you think that kind of devotion is beyond you, That's not true. That's not true. You don't come to the mountain and try to get to the top in a single giant leap. It just doesn't work that way. You find a path that you know leads to the top. And then you keep taking one step after another, and sooner or later, you stand on the summit. Our Guru has given us the path of Kriya Yoga. This path will take us to the very heights of self-realization. And what we have to do now is just keep taking one step after another, with all our faith, with all the sincerity of our hearts. Master said, perseverance is the whole magic of spiritual success. So we wish you a wonderful, wonderful Convocation week filled with boundless blessings from God and our gurus. And we know if you go into it with that open, receptive heart, with that yearning to offer your soul to God, you will receive, each one of us will receive those divine blessings that can completely, utterly transform our lives. In the words of the great Lahiri Mahashai, he used to tell his disciples, Banat Banjai, striving, one day behold the divine goal. And I'd like to close tonight with Master's prayer that I referred to earlier, his prayer for every one of us. Master said, whether I am in the body or not, still those who will be in tune, I shall have a prayer for you. And that is, may God be born within you as he is born in me. May God bless us all.